Hi everyone, welcome back to the Biz by Three. I'm Kayla,
I'm Candace.
Kanisha.
and today we're going to be doing in honor of Black History Month. Today's the last day of February. Woo! Yay!
Hi.
So we're gonna be doing the Black Experience Part Two, and we're just gonna start off by talking about how we've come into our Black identities as Black women living in America, living in New York, and loving every minute of it. So I'm just gonna start off. Um, I don't know. I guess I wanted to talk about my locks. I feel like that was like, and I was actually thinking about this today. I was just seeing so many like starter locks or medium length locks, like just people with them like on the train and like in my school. And I think during COVID there was a real someone should do a study on this, honestly, because I feel like during COVID there was a huge skyrocket of like lock your hair.
Mm,
Like do it. If you've been thinking about it, do it. If you've been thinking about it, learn about it and then do it. And then there's
mhm.
a lot of rhetoric and there was a lot of informative stuff. And I just remember all the times like scouring through YouTube for um like unisex styles and like how to do band. I remember I did bantu knots for my 18th birthday and I was so proud of them. I looked so good. Some of my friends said I looked like Trinity from from the Matrix. But that was
Oh,
because of the glasses I had on. I was rocking a look. So I was just like I was happy about that. And it gave me a sense of control. And
mm.
honestly, that was very necessary for me. Honestly, like my whole lock journey is a whole story, but I started off pretty young and I had to really prove that I was committed to it to my mom. And after seeing the Bob Marley movie, shout out to that because that was so much fun.
Oh,
It reminded me of the book that you gave me before you allowed me to lock my hair, and it was called Dreads. I forget the author right now, but it was a wonderful book. It was a wonderful book and it was full of imagery and photography. And yeah, it really gave me a sense of spirit. And
I think the book was
yeah,
explaining, it also explained the origin of like where dreads came from. I don't know if it talked about the term dreads, but basically like why people started getting dreads and different types of people, right? I think that's what that book was
yeah,
talking about. But yeah, I definitely wasn't so gung-ho to just let Kayla just go ahead and lock her hair because I'm like, that's for black people, if you lock your hair and you don't want it anymore, you gotta cut your shit off. Like it's not, I mean, even though I think there's some type of special comb or something like that, but it's more of a difficult process and you'll lose a lot of hair in that process if you want to use that comb, that straightening comb. So like pretty much if you make that decision to lock your hair, it's real serious decision. So Kayla was, I don't even know what, 12, 13, something
10.
like 10,
I was
10.
10.
Well, I was
It's been
like,
like 11 years.
what? No. Because in the beginning, Kayla, you just wanted long hair. Kayla wanted, initially, she wanted little, like she was a Disney girl. She thought she was a Disney girl. She wanted the white girl, long hair you can just flick like that, and it's just bouncy. And I'm like,
I love
honey,
Rapunzel.
honey, our hair is probably not gonna get
Mhm.
like that. And initially I just knew that she just wanted long hair, and I noticed she knew that it would. Yeah, myself, my mother, my grandmother, we all have locks, so it's all around her. And yeah,
Mm.
I don't know for what reason, but when black people get locks, your hair grows pretty quickly and pretty long. Um, so I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't the reason, and she proved that it wasn't. So here she is.
And honestly, like going through my middle school, my elementary, because I remember fifth grade graduation, I rocked like it was my baby locks at that time. So I was rocking a little style, a little updo, and they had to do like 1,000 pins to hold it in. So I remember just being so prideful with my little glasses and my baby locks, and then going through the middle school process with just that kind of hair. And I went to school in the Bronx and it made me feel something of my own because the people around me were very diverse. And honestly, it was amazing. It helped during high school. I sort of had a little bit of an identity crisis during Spanish class, which prompted me to really want to indulge myself in all of the layers of my culture and who I am as a Black woman, because we're also Latin women. And I think that's very beautiful. And I wanted to tap in more to that. And I have committed myself to not only tapping into those cultures, but also cultures that I grew up with. Like I did West Indian dance, West African dance, sorry, both actually, a little bit. Um, when I was in elementary school, and I loved doing drums, and I just want to get back to that as well. I was talking to my great grandma, and we were talking about how in Panama they had she told me the word for it, but I can't say it right now. But it was just basically a dance circle where you would get in the guys were playing drums, and they would just get in a circle and they would dance with each other. And that to me is like the epitome of beauty, the epitome of culture and cohesiveness and harmony and love with just the bass notes. Like I'm a music lover, so I love the bass and the healing of all of that, all of those sounds. And definitely this year it's something that I want to connect back to in terms of the dancing and the exploration of culture. But I feel like I'm doing that a lot in my college career, and it's going to be a lifelong journey with that. But my identity as a Black woman, especially a thicker one, and growing up like that, I feel like there's just so many layers that I get to enjoy. Definitely.
All right, so it's identity. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and coming into it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, from when I don't know, maybe second grade, I would say, and I still don't remember what I know things that sparked in me a pride, like my pro-blackness, right? I would say that my pro-blackness kicked in maybe about second grade. Um, and I mean, I'm 40, I'm an 83 baby. I can't really tell you exactly what was going on around that time, but I just remember like there was no social media or anything like that. So as children, we would, if we had the TV on at a certain time, you were watching the news, right? And you were seeing what was happening in the world, in your neighborhood, in your area. And you would see these big cases like when there was the Abner Louima case, right? When there was the OJ case. Oh, that was a big one, right? Like OJ Simpson case and the LA riots, like all those things I got to see, happening on screen, not in front of my face, but I was experiencing those times and that vibe and the energy. And even within my household, like my uncle, we would talk about it or he would talk about it and I would listen. And I just understood the unfairness in the world towards Black people, Black and brown people at an early age. And I didn't like it. And I even remember I went so far as like, I didn't read any white books, any books that had any white characters or anything on it ever. Like I would see it, I would not read it. I was turned off. I was not that I didn't have a love for all people. I naturally did and I still do. However, I understood like early that our society um things were very unjust and unfair and unequal when it came to Black and white people in America. So because of that, I just formed this pride, and my family, I took great pride in my family. Everybody worked. I witnessed everybody busting their ass. Nobody was sitting at home lazy, like none of that. I was a latchkey kid because everybody was working, like everybody was doing their thing. They were like my role models. And that was always just such a great inspiration for me to push, to do better, to be better, And as I got older, I mean, would I say I experienced racism? Definitely not blatant racism, I would say. But you start to, as you get older, you start to really see and feel the um the subtleties of of I guess the remnants of the blatant racism, right? So, for example, in my previous workplace, I was a teacher, and what I found is that leaders, white leaders, once given their titles, for some reason, it was as if their titles equaled superiority over anybody else, especially Black and brown teachers. I just witnessed and experienced like such passive aggressiveness, and understanding that it's not so direct in your face, right? So it's hard to kind of know how to maneuver within those type of situations, but understanding that I'm dealing with someone or people who really in their hearts or their minds or their souls or their spirits feel as if they are somehow above me or better than me or whatever. And that is something that never ever sits right with me, because I'm going to be honest, like I have a very good understanding of who I am and who Black people are and where we come from, and that we are the original people on this planet. And I just could I just feel that, right? Like I walk in that. So therefore there's nobody that can make me feel inferior to them. So when I was experiencing that toxic work environment because the leaders had big egos, right? And then where does the egos come from? The egos come from privilege, right? Something called white privilege that everybody's been speaking out about recently. White privilege is a very real thing. And if there's white privilege, that means that there's Blacks who are on the opposite end of that, Black and brown people who are on the opposite ends of that spectrum. Therefore, it's we need more of us to be aware and understand what exactly is happening around us and the situations that we're in, so we know better how to maneuver, right? Um, so I mean, in my experience and with my identity, I came into just a strong sense of self through books, through a lot of literature, a lot of reading about history, reading about how we came here from Africa, reading about what was happening in Africa before we were brought here, um, reading about all of those things and understanding it, and then fast forwarding to the here and now in America and what we experience and go through as Black and brown people. I just it's very sad. It's sad. It's so many things, right? It's so many emotions and words that can stem from just being and living in our skin. Um, but as far as my identity, I just am very aware and very certain. So it's like nobody can sway me anyway. Like although I love all people, I definitely love my people first. And I mean, I don't think that that's anything to be ashamed of, or, for anybody else to feel the type of way about. It's just like when you got to root for the underdog, right? And the situation that we're in this society, I feel like Black and brown people are the underdogs. And to know that and to live that when you also know that you are an original people is a real mind fuck, right? And it goes to show the reason why a lot of people, our people, are the way they are and are experiencing things that the way they're experiencing, like whether it's broken homes or mental health issues, which is through the roof at this point in time. Not even just in our community or everybody, right? Like it explains, it gives you a good insight as to why our people are the way we are. Like I can definitely see how we got here when you might have your person like that will say, well, everything's equal, like everybody has equal rights and equal, but it's like I like this analogy and I can't repeat it verbatim, but there was a woman when it was like Black Lives Matter movement was really happening, and she had gave an analogy of like a monopoly game, right, with Black and brown people and versus white people. Like basically, if you start off ahead of the game monetarily, you're gonna be ahead of the game at the end when you when you don't raise the other people up to an even playing level. So that's what we've been experiencing, and that's just in a financial aspect, not to mention the mental fuckery that has been happening, the separation of families that's been happening and that's been designed to happen. I from reading, I've learned that basically everything that the Catholics do in their rituals and their church is based off of, our ancient ancestry, based off of Egyptian beliefs or Kemetic beliefs. It's just so much symbolism everywhere. It's kind of like when you can't unknow it. It's like I look at myself now, I listen to myself now and how I speak and what I stand on. And I think about me years ago when I had friends that would talk like me, and I'd be like, God damn, ain't shit good? Like you talking about somebody. No, that motherfucker, no, that motherfucker's a snake and that motherfucker's nasty. And it's like, damn, is anything good? Is anything what it seems to be? But it's like I can see how people can go crazy, how people can lose their minds when the way in which I feel the way in which we are living our lives, which is for the material, goes definitely against how we are supposed to be living our lives. And that's pretty disappointing. But as far as my identity and my people, I am just pro-Black. I love all people, but I am pro-Black because I know who I am and I know who we are. And I stand on that. And there's no one of whatever color or race that can deter me from those beliefs.
Very good. Tanisha.
Yeah. I guess before I say my thoughts against, not against, that's not the word. Say my thoughts towards, something you said, Kayla, struck something in me, something you said, Candice, struck something in me. So I'm trying to think like where to begin. Well, as you spoke, Candice, about things that you read, I remember my dad was really big on us knowing, ourselves. And one of the first books he gave me, which sadly, I feel like I need to go back and restart it because I didn't finish it because like, oh my gosh, Daddy, this is a long book.
A thick ass
I'm
book.
like, that's my first thought. I was
Thick.
like, how am I gonna finish this book? Because I was in high school when he gave it to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my attention span. I don't feel like doing all this stuff back then. But it was Malcolm X.
Oh,
And I actually did an art piece on Malcolm X. And ironically enough, I was going through my product closet and I still have the piece. I did it in this calligraphy class that I took, and it was like the big Malcolm XX and a part of a speech that he made. And I'm just like, wow, I can't believe, because I finished high school in 1996 and I literally still have that art piece. And so, with that being said, there were many things that came to mind from what I did read. Obviously, him finding himself, and what also came to mind is like him straightening his hair because it seemed, well, he wanted to obviously conform to a certain image, right? And
Right.
straightening here said something about you, slash it seemed to be easier or replicated looking like a Caucasian man or a white man, as he would put it in the book and things like that. And then of course, as you know the story, he went to jail and just really conforming to that particular faith that he followed when he was here. And so it was a whole, transition and process. And coming back to me, I'm thinking like you spoke about you didn't experience racism or anything of that nature. I felt like neither did I, but somewhat to a certain degree. And I guess that come in different formats. Here I am coming from Jamaica to America and I speak a certain way, right? So it's like the kids can't understand me. They're like, what do you say? I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm speaking English like you. What are you talking about, right? So it's just like So I'm like, am I not saying the same words that you're saying? So it was just crazy because here I am 9 and this whole new world for me and a whole new culture, really, because I'm used to what I'm used to in Jamaica. And here I am in New York City and it's a whole different, vibe, even though I'm thinking like it should be different. We're all Black people, right? So
Mm.
in Jamaica, I didn't experience none of that stuff. There was none of that I encountered or came across or anything of that nature. So coming here is like, oh, they actually do speak different. Yes, it's English, but it's more proper. So now I'm particular with the words that I say, or I will omit words because I just can't pronounce it the American way, so to speak. And so even to this day, there are certain words that I still won't say because it just sounds weird to someone else. And now it sounds weird to me because I'm like, oh, this is not the way it's supposed to be pronounced here. I'm like, oh, this is too much work. I'm like, just forget it. I'm not going to say it. So, I want to feel embarrassed or look like I'm ignorant or illiterate or whatever the case might be. Um, and then, of course, colorism, right? It's like, oh, I'm not liked like this person. But I'm like, that's a thing? And he's like, yeah, it's a thing here. And I came across this clip on Instagram where this young lady, she's from Nigeria, and she said she never experienced racism until she came, here.
Was that the
Because
lady where she was when she was in college? Was it that one? And the professor, she got a good grade on a test. Was it that or something else?
I have some connection to that.
She got a good
Yeah.
grade. She said that she got a good, actually the best grade on some writing assignment. And when the teacher said, "Who is this?" and it was her, he just had this facial expression. I was like, "Oh,
It could have
you?
been you.
Like, how could you
Right.
produce this?" And what I remember that the person I saw on the Instagram, what she said was, "Of course, everybody from Nigeria is brilliant."
Right. If I'm not mistaken, it has to be the same. Right, right. Because she was just like baffled, I mean, why is it surprising to you, right?
Right.
And those are the things that we encounter in different ways, whether it's within our own, community and our own race amongst each other. So, like I said, colorism is like, I mean, it just baffles my mind to this day where people are like the dark skin and the light skin and the this skin and the that skin. I'm like,
Yeah. It's like within the Black experience, there's
lady,
like the Black division. There's the
the
division of
right.
us. That
There you
part.
go. Black vision. And I never grew up in my household hearing anything about color. Yes, we know as Black people, we can produce various colors, right? We know that. But it was never nothing in my own home that I heard, oh, your light skinned sister, brown skin. It's like we just didn't grow up and stuff like that. So coming out of the home and hearing that stuff, it just took me aback personally. And now just like, okay, my color is not good enough. My complexion is not okay. My this, my that. I already had my own insecurities as far as like, the birthmark that I was born with. And it's like 2 colors on my face if you look closely. And now I kind of grew into it. And so here is someone saying whatever they're saying. But that's just one, aspect. But then there's the other aspect before, like my hair was relaxed and then transitioning to being natural, which is what and how I was born, right? And I remember, I don't know if I was like 19 or 20, where this young man, he was like, "Oh, you would never get married," because at that time I had natural hair because I was transitioning in high school out of the perm into natural hair or into the hair that I was born in, really and truly. And so the young man was like, "Oh, you never get married because you have natural hair." And so I definitely, now that I'm talking about this, no wonder why I made certain decisions in life, which we won't get into. But yeah, sometimes you just like, "Oh, really? So this won't happen for me?" And you don't realize, like I said, with the decisions that you make, like it was a trigger in you, but it was a suppressed trigger because now the fact that it was suppressed, you don't really think about it until you're talking about it. You're like, probably that's why I did X, Y, and Z. Probably that's why I went that route or I went down that path. And so I thought my natural hair wasn't beautiful. I thought I would never get married because I had natural hair. Not that that was on my mind, but when the person put it in my mind, I was like,
They planted
oh, okay. Huh?
they planted the seed in your head.
Right. Right. Cause I was like, it's not like I was strung out on like, oh, I want to get married, I want to get married, I want to get married. But when they put that, I'm like, well, if I do want to, and if I switch my mind or whatever the case might be, I'm like, that means I won't, because of my hair. And he was a brother. He was a black brother, but more fair skin looking brother. So I don't know. I guess his thing was more so women with long straight hair. That was his like ideal, person. And so that, like you said, the seed planted and making me feel insecure about myself. And I wasn't feeling insecure before that statement. I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? I'm like, coming from your own brother in your own race saying this. And so, but ironically enough, even my family, when I was transitioning from like the perm to my hair back to the roots, they were like, what are you doing? Thought I was going crazy. Like you had this long hair. And I'm like, but this is the hair that I was born with. That's just been processed. But they were like, yeah, especially my grandma. Like, I don't know, grandmas love my grandma to pieces, of course, but it's something about here
Because I
or
would say
grandmas.
that
I'm like,
that
grandma, like,
especially like with old school people, like we're just so trained and brainwashed, like
yeah,
many seeds have been planted within the Black community, whether it
yeah,
was through television. I mean, when you look on the, say, when TV first started airing, right? When TV first began, and all you're seeing when there was programs on was white families, white sitcoms, white dolls in the store. Everything's white. White is right, right? Like that's the seed
right.
that was planted in Black people's brains, and these seeds were stemming off of the other seeds from slavery, to belittle us. They tried to use the Bible to justify, the actions of that, to make it seem as if we're inferior. Like the seed of inferiority was planted long, 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 long time ago, and it's like that seed has continued to grow, and now there's like different strands of those seeds, and it shows itself in so many different ways within our community. But
Right.
that's so true. So for older people, like, yeah, that long flowy hair, what you see on the screen or what is told to you that is pretty, the imagery that is shown that this is what pretty is. And when you
Mm-hmm.
don't look like that, and not only does your hair not look like that, your skin don't look like that either, your features
Mm-hmm.
don't look like that
Right.
either, then well, what the fuck are you, right? Who the fuck are you? You're nobody. You got to start to
Right.
get like them. Those are the seeds that were planted in us. But it's so sad to me because I'm just like, wow. But how did they do that? They did that because they didn't allow us to get educated, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, because To me, it's like, how do you go from ancient times where, remember, ancient Greeks and Romans had to travel to Egypt to go to school and study, right? For years, they got their knowledge and their wisdom from Africa and then took it back to where they live, right? And then it's like they've started copying from us, they've been taking from us from the beginning of time, only to take it over so much and then flip the script to now belittle us and try to make us inferior to them. When in all actuality, if you want somebody to be inferior, they were inferior to us. So that, because I have certain knowledge and understanding like that, is when I walk into a room, there's no, my head's held high wherever the fuck I'm at. There's never any, oh, I'm in this crowd, or because I am me all day, every day, wherever I go. And I am I am you also. So it's kind of like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. But I get it. And I'm the only one that needs to get it because I'm the only one being me, right? So that's how I walk around and live my life. But it's so sad that many of us don't know that. Many of us don't have that understanding of self, and where we come from. I had a friend who, a few years ago when we were working together, we're still friends, but at that time, she didn't even real know that Black people were really kings and queens. She thought that was made up shit that Black people said to make themselves feel better. Why? Because in America, the history that you get is American history, and our American history began as us being slaves. Our American history starts as us being inferior, but by force. So if that's your beginning in the understanding of who we are, you don't know who we are. But the thing is that they know who we are, and they've always known who we are. So much so that they've taken it over and claimed it as theirs. And that's a sad sight to see. And it's even sadder that a lot of us don't know that. Because I felt like if a lot of us did know that and were able to walk in that, people's lives would be so much different.
True. Yeah. Kayla, ironically, when I was younger, of course, now I'm like, I literally don't care about hair. Grateful that I have hair, but I used to wear the long scarves on my head and walk around the house as if I was Rapunzel or whomever.
Me
It's like I want that
too.
long hair. So I will do that to like feel as if I had the long hair. And it's interesting how the things that you once treasured, I guess, because I'm like, I'm grateful that I have hair, but if I didn't have hair, I'll be fine and I'll still be okay in life, right? But I just think like, your mom mentioned is that seed that's planted because like my grandma was like, oh my gosh, now your hair is this way versus that way. And I'm like, grandma, it's still hair, it was like whether it's straight or whether it's kinky or coily or in the afro style. And it's like at this current point in my life, I want my hair to be massive. Like I want it to reach the sky. Like the bigger the better, right? I don't want it to be long and straight. I feel like now it's boring to be long and straight. Now, granted, I do switch my hair every now and then, but it still reverts back, and I
Because
get so excited.
and it's the beauty of it is versatility as well. We have that.
Exactly, the beauty of it. Yeah, that's perfect. Versatility. Yeah, and at one point I did think about locks. So I'm like, that is a deep commitment, and that made me think like for you to have committed at such a young age, like I think that's phenomenal because I'm like, here you are standing out, being unique at such a young age. Like, what was the mindset that you like? I don't know. Like, you have to tell yourself, like, I am beautiful. I am this. I'm that. I'm not speaking words into your mind, but I'm just thinking, like, at that age where it's like you're developing and you're growing into yourself. What was your thought process throughout? Like not saying, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore because peer pressure or whatever the case might be. That came to mind as you were like talking about that because I'm like that was such a young commit. I mean, at a young age, commit to like something permanent as this?
You know what? I'm gonna say it's a I get it from my mama thing because
Together from my mama. Hey.
like like I'm not gonna say that I was a confident like a super confident child. Um, but I'm also gonna say that I'm a naturally happy person and I always loved people, but because I always loved people, any hate that came my way, I didn't I was confused by it. Like I
Mm.
have so much love for you. Yeah, and I mean, like, are you okay? So
Mm.
that was like my mindset with it. And actually, like in elementary school, when I chose to do it, I was being I think about her all of the time. That was my most authentic self. I was in after school doing so many activities that I love to do. And so I was very authentically me when I chose to do that. And my mindset, I understood where my mom came from, but my like to me, the two weren't like like it wasn't a cause and effect. And wanting long hair wasn't the reason that I wanted locks, and I really had to communicate that to my mom. My mindset was I need to control something. I need to have autonomy over something, and that was it. And I continue that, and I twist my own because it's not just the initial locking process. You know, other people have touched my hair. And at the very start of it, my nana was the one retwisting it. Um, but it was me who was retwisting my own hair, and me who was doing my own styling, and just I loved that process, and I loved having that control, and I loved, oh my gosh, I remember this one time, I think it was one of the first braid outs. My hair was like literally by my eyes, and I had braided and it came out crinkly, and I was like, ah!
Oh, yeah.
I was like, you see? Like, I was just like, I was loving, I was, I don't know. I don't know. That felt like freedom to me, having
The
that.
effect, everything.
Huh?
So you live in the look and the effect of how crinkly it was, like
Yeah,
almost
like
like
a braid out, the fresh
yeah.
braid out, and it holds too. Can't, there's no other feeling like it. Like, let's talk about it. Like getting your hair done, getting that fresh hairdo. You become like you step into that. Ooh, look at me. And let's talk about really because you have a very strong sense of self, right? And I feel like Black American women especially have these rituals that we do in order to really step into ourselves, whether it's adornments or nails, or fashion, as like just spaces that we're pioneers in and spearheaders in, and really using that to build up our Black identity as well. Because I think about the trend cycle right now and the influences of 90s, 2000s fashion that were basics, for Black women, um, in New York City and in other places. And I think about like even patterning. Like I got this I remember in fashion after school we would use this this fabric that I learned that it came from Africa. I can't remember the name, it starts with an M. But I learned that it
Cloth.
came from Africa.
She says that's with an M, so not Kente.
Is it mud cloth?
Oh, Michael.
Um no, that I just got a hat that's mud cloth actually. That was a great gift. But I don't think it was that originally, but it is the basis. It's something that fashion designers use to make the
Mm.
first layout of the garment. and then they go in and use the actual fabric that they want to use. So it's for their initial basic design just to see how it sews. But I loved learning all of that, and I love learning about like stones and geodes and learning about where they resonate in the world and um the different things you find when you go looking for them. I would say that one of the things as a Black woman that we need to prioritize is our intuition and our natural magnetism. And this is for Black women specifically. Um, because I think that with that comes the quest for knowledge, and the quest for knowledge in a certain extent, because there's a knowing and then there's the yearning for more knowing and a gradual uncovering. So without that, through that process, it's very fun and it's very enlightening. You learn a lot about what you're capable of, and you learn a lot about your history and where you
I
come
feel like
from.
that's what your 20s are all about, right? Like late teens into your 20s is about discovering yourself in whatever way that looks like for you. And for Black people, I would encourage everybody to really try to know your history, like know your history, know where you came from, and knowing your history goes back to Africa if you are Black. Even if you're not Black, knowing your history goes back to Africa. So like when you start to understand your history or the world's history, um, the patterns, the cycles, the things that just change but stay the same, right? Like then you get to have a clearer understanding of what's really going on here. You get to formulate your own opinion on what's really going on here. And from that, whatever your conclusions are, that is how you begin to navigate in the world, right? Like you base it off of whatever your findings are. Um, so for me, that's how I've lived my life. It's never, I carry my Blackness with pride. Um, and it's never anything but that, right? Um, so that's how I walk in it. But I just wanted to do a little sidebar when we talk about locks and stuff. One thing that grinds my gears is when women cheat and they do the faux locks, when they
Oh,
start
it
their
bothers
locks
you?
with fake hair.
Oh, it bothers you?
Hell yeah. You cheated, bitch. Cut that shit out. No, go through the fucking journey. Because when I see people do that, to me, that's like you not really wanting it for like, you know,
The
beyond
true spirit.
fashion, for reasons beyond fashion sense, right? Because if you too vain or whatever to go through that, what they say is the ugly phase, the very beginning, then maybe this ain't for you. Maybe you need to think about the why. Your why. Why are you doing this? Why are you making this decision? But I hate that. And then I hate when they do that and they really claim it like it's their hair. When I know I started these motherfuckers from scratch, from this fucking small, after I snip, 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 snip all my fucking straight perm processed hair off, all right, down to my little natural fro. And when my mother started my little knots, like that's cheating. I don't like it. You're a fake bitch. I don't got no respect for that shit. Like that grinds my gears. That was just a side note. Sorry.
Well, I want to add that was another thing why I also wasn't sure if I wanted to commit because it reminded me, not reminded me, I just remembered another book my dad gave me. I think it was like a Rastafarian book. And so just really looking into the whole mindset behind Rastafarianism, it's just like it's a spiritual thing. You don't just lock it here like that. It's a journey. It's a real it's a
Thank you.
and so I was like,
Shalom.
ooh, I remember when I read that book, I was like, the way you eat, the way you live your life, and just like the mindset behind it, you just don't want to like dive into it and not have any background information. Like you said, ask yourself the whys and, who are you doing this for? And, is this a short-term commitment, a full-term commitment? Is this a lifestyle? Is this for like, the trend? And so I was just like, oh, I don't know. That was pretty heavy after reading that book to take on. So I was just like, yeah, I think I might get that in my 60 until I'm mentally ready for that journey in my life. Because I feel like personally, it would definitely be, like yourself, Candace, I would start it from scratch and do it, in my opinion, the authentic way. I wouldn't want to add anything to it. I feel like, go through that journey and do it that way. So yeah, it would definitely be a process for sure, but it would be a beautiful one. Just to see, like you said, from the beginning to the middle to the end, and that's life, right? Takes its twists and turns and its journeys. So
It's really interesting how when we have these questions about experience, we tend to just talk about our hair, and other things as well. But I think that shows um the relevance of just something about the journey and the self-care. I feel like our hair is the way that we take care of ourselves as Black Americans, Black women, and just one level of that, of course, but an important level because it's about appearance and then it's also about deeper things. Um,
mhm.
so with that being said, do you guys have any takeaways about the the conversation or um any last thoughts about your Black identity or someone coming into their Black identity?
My takeaway or my suggestion, like um what I think that every Black person really needs to do is read, really read up, and I don't mean like not a school textbook, like what you need, the information that you would need to acquire is not going to be given to you. Nobody's going to hand you, nobody in authority is going to hand you any book and say, here, read this. This is what you need to know about yourself. No. What they're going to do is the opposite. And they're going to brainwash us with many subliminal things or messages, symbolisms, and things like that. And if you don't know, you just won't know and you will fall victim. So I say read classic books like Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Read, see, love it. I love that book. Read Malcolm X, or watch the movie with Denzel. He did a great damn job, like
Really did. She
like
don't want to Oscar for that.
yeah, read The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor somebody. I can't remember the author. Like just read books that are banned. Read the books they don't want you to read. Read that shit. And if you can't read the whole shit, skim through it and find certain parts that, it's going to hit what you need to hit because information is out there. And the more information you get, the more tools you can put in your tool belt. So, like the more knowledge you acquire, the more you understand yourself, the more you can define yourself, and the more you can walk in yourself. That's my
Yeah.
takeaway and
Wow.
advice.
Really good. Honestly, as you were speaking, and even before you said that, I was like, I'm gonna make this as quick as possible. But yeah, I definitely need to have more of a collection of Black authors, Black books, referencing to what we went through. because I feel like over time, either it has been watered down or somewhat almost negated, like, oh, it's not that important anymore because now everyone is intermixing and things of that nature. So I'm black, we're all black. Well, not quite,
Right.
so really knowing that foundation is really key. And I feel like life is full circle. Why I say this because I had a friend in high school who had locks like you guys. And I'm like, wow, God, it just kind of came back to me. I'm like, it's interesting how life works. And I say that because when I went to her home, she was the one that really influenced me to transition out of the perm because every single person in her family had locks. I mean, when you walked in, you felt like, I'm not trying to be funny, you felt like you walked into Africa because I mean, whether it was the mud clot pillowcases and, the artwork. And I was like, I want my home to emulate that. Like when you walk in, you know who lives here. And I'm like, that definitely has come to my like more black art on my um walls, or you see more black elements. And I'm like, it's not enough of that for my girls to know like who you are, where you come from, and really stand firm on that and don't water it down in any format. So definitely my takeaway is like you said, just really reinforcing that to my girls as a young black woman growing up, and even refreshing for myself as well, because I think sometimes we do need a refreshers as we progress in life. We might have forgotten some things, and some of the books that you mentioned I haven't read, and I definitely need to put that on my quote unquote TBR, as the bookie girlies call it. And so and not just have it sit there but actually open it and read it, and just really having that solid foundation. Because, like you said, Candace, you would not be swayed once you know what you know. No one can
Another
tell
good
you any.
one to read about is Marcus Garvey, his biography.
Isn't it sad? I'm from Jamaica, and I should have read something referencing to
That
him, right?
man, I didn't know about him until I read that book that I bought on my own. And boy, did I learn a lot.
I know I know he was powerful, and there's a lot of things against him, but I haven't read his story per se. So definitely, I could say I should be ashamed of myself, but amen. We just keep moving and
Because what's so
change.
funny, what's so deep with black people, it's like we don't even gotta know all the stories.
Right,
You know a
right.
few of them, you know the gist of the shit, right? You ain't never have, you don't even gotta read that book. You already know the deal. You already know.
It's like a tapestry, right? They all weave into each other in some format, right? So
You've seen one, you've
that's
seen
true.
not all of them. You've seen fucking Harriet Tubman shit. You've seen Nat Turner shit. You seen Roots. You see Color Purple. Like you seen one, you get the gist of the shit, right? But like
Oh, that's
you don't
that's
gotta remember
true.
dates and locations and shit. Like,
Right,
oh,
right, right. And
fancy
that's even
terms.
key too.
No,
But yeah, knowing something better than nothing for sure. So at least you have
yes,
something to stand on versus nothing. So
that's right.
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
True. And honestly, I want to piggyback off of what you just said because release the shame. That would be my thing. I am
Mm,
super prideful. And well, I was gonna say like I should spiteful a little bit. When I learn about injustice or like over a period of time, I learn about something, I'll just, act a certain way out of spite just because naturally, um, I feel like I wouldn't have found like self-esteem another way. I would act a certain way just because no, like you think you have this power over me. You thought psych Mike, that's what you taught me now. Like
Yeah, that's the old one.
psych Mike, because and I think that's just my journey. Like that was the natural way for me to come into that. But that's how it is. Like when I'm learning about things, I'm just releasing this any hiccups that I have. All of that low frequency, like just the fear, the guilt. Fear is the mind killer. Like just reading and allow yourself to be. because it's really deep programming. And when you notice it, you don't stop noticing it, like my mom said. So, once you feed yourself the seeds of lightness, um of perfection and imperfection, like I want to sit here and say that we're perfect people. We're all perfect people. But why is that such an uncomfortable statement? It's uncomfortable because we're in a society where we can't regard ourselves as goodness or greatness, because that's too much. And we see perfect as, I define perfectionism as being, not without flaw, but just being. And that's what we need to be. If you are a Black woman, a Black man, a person of color, just be, and see the people around you freak out a little bit, because it's like, who are you to be?
Well, just be your best self at vibrating at your highest frequency. Just be that.
Like that. That'd be so cool in a t-shirt, vibrating at your highest frequency. I love that. We have our little
Here we
quotes.
go. That's another one. Hey, wait till we get our merch going.
Yeah,
We got
That
shit
would be
to
fire.
say.
Yeah, a black
this is a
shirt with those
party.
white.
I love it.
Cool.
But happy Black History Month,
At the
everybody.
end of it, it's the end. March 1st tomorrow. We did it. We made it.
Yes. Wow.
2024 in the
Thank you for the shirt,
building. Yeah,
right?
still the beginning of the year,
2028.
even though I'm already at like next Christmas, but it's all right. It's February, but March tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Bridge by 3.
Yes. Like, subscribe,
Yes.
comment down below your thoughts about how you came into your Black identity, or as a person of color, your experience living in the Americas, or if you are outside of the States, comment below your experience in your community with people of color's communities, and
Oh my.
enjoy. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.